Thank you, Shannon. Welcome, everyone. Thank you again for participating this morning. Hopefully, we'll get a few more of our participants logged on here shortly. We especially appreciate our panelists who will be joining us this morning. We have representing the banking industry, Shannon Mitchell with Banner Bank, and our attorney, Greg Bessert, and our accountant, Mario Rea, and he is with Combined IQ. And my name is Corey Kersley. I'm the executive director for the Sherwood Chamber of Commerce, and we are partnering this education series with the city of Sherwood, and Bruce Coleman, who's the economic development manager for the city, is on the call as well, representing the city. So thank you to the city for their support in this effort. We want to especially thank Banner Bank for helping to sponsor and make this education series possible, as well as Metro, who provided us with a grant that also allows us to host this education series. This is the second of 12 education series sessions that we'll have throughout the next year, each third Thursday of the month, starting last month in July, and we'll go all the way through June of 2021. So right now, we're asking everyone to register for each individual session. If you want to join us for each individual session, we welcome everybody to join all of them if you like, or you can pick and choose as they pertain to you. So with that, before we get to the panelists and the introductions for them, I thought maybe since we don't have a lot of pre-registered folks, I thought maybe we just go around and just take a minute and allow each of you to introduce yourself and share what your background is, what you're doing, what prompted you to have an interest in today's discussion, and as well as if you have any projects or anything particular that you're working on that you thought maybe this session could help with, anything like that that you'd like to share, we'd love to hear from you. So with that, we heard a little bit from Juan before we got started, but Juan, if you don't mind, we'll start with you again since we've got a few more people on. Just if you want to give us a quick introduction, that'd be great.
Yeah, once again, thanks for having me here. My name is Juan Cornell, and I'm the owner of Free Agent PDX, business development consulting firm here locally. And yeah, I think as far as my interest, I admire all things business. I really strive to stay educated as much as possible. Being in business development, I feel like it's incredibly important for me to be aware of what's going on. And so, yeah, that's why I'm here. And thanks again for having me.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Carmen, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Carmen Madrid. I actually work at MISO, Micro Enterprise Services of Oregon, and we are a nonprofit organization that supports small businesses. I met Bruce actually in Salem, so he's invited me, and I just wanted to know what was going on out here in Sherwood. I actually just live down the street, the next city over in Tualatin. We're working remotely from home, and you know, we have a lot of services that we support small local businesses, and so just wanted to see you know, how we could be supportive and see the kind of work that's happening in Sherwood at this time. So thank you for having me.
Okay, great. Thank you, Carmen. Bryce.
Yeah, hi, Corey and everyone. Bryce Baker, I'm one of our newer business bankers here in the Portland area. My office is located in Beaverton. I've been here for about 3 weeks now. I came over from Bank of the West as a small business officer, and I just felt, you know, I had some connections here at Banner Bank, and it looked like a great opportunity to grow. And I work under Shannon. She's been awesome so far. And yeah, I just looking to learn some more about the, you know, market knowledge in the area. So thank you for having me.
Okay, thanks, Bryce. And then Parker, if you're at your desk and you're listening, Parker's been logged in for a bit, but we haven't seen or heard from him, so he may have had to step away from his desk. Parker, are you there by chance? Okay, he doesn't seem like he is, so we'll get back to him if he jumps on. So Just as a review, today we are looking at how partnering with the right experts in the right way can help position your business for long-term success. We have a panel of 3 key advisors, as I mentioned, an accountant, an attorney, and a business banker, and they will discuss their roles and collaboration as external experts helping business clients achieve their goals. And so this is an opportunity to learn about best practices and considerations when selecting outside experts and why it's important to have a team of trusted professionals supporting your company's profitability and long-term success. So with that in mind, let's start with just allowing each of our 3 panelists to give a brief introduction of themselves. So Shannon, you want to start us off?
Absolutely. Thank you, Corey. So again, Shannon Mitchell, I'm with Banner Bank. I'm our business banking team lead over our Oregon and Southwest Washington business banking team. We specialize in business development. I've been in banking for 10 years, and our team specializes in solutions tailored to our clients' needs on the business and small business and commercial lending. With myself and my colleagues, we really strive to serve our clients by getting to know them better, understanding their needs and the challenges of their business, and then really coming up with that tailored recommendation of how to better your efficiencies. I have a passion for partnering with business owners to help support their financial goals. And at the end of the day, it sounds really corny, but there's nothing better than really helping that business owner accomplish their goals and dreams through financial solutions that can be provided. Overall, I really aim to help support the small business community and help expansion, retool, and also growing operations.
Okay, great. Mario, you want to go next?
Sure. Mario Rea here. I started off my career as a certified public accountant, worked with one of the big international firms, and transitioned into a couple of local firms, and then got cocky and started my own practice. And I grew it up and over a number of years, and got bored, actually. And so I transitioned my skill set into more business advisory and management development, and started working with large businesses for a while, Fortune 100 companies, did a lot of travel with that, but I really missed working with small, medium businesses. So it's been a better part of 10 years now, I transitioned back into working with small, medium businesses. And so I have started up an accounting tax practice. My personal time is focused on strategy, planning, business advisory, and coaching. What I do is I help my clients make more money.
Excellent. We always like that. Keeps the economy going. Greg, you want to finish us off?
Yeah, my name is Greg Besser. Started my practice some time ago now with one of the larger Seattle law firms. Practiced there for a while. Very interesting work, but somewhat detached on the institutional client base. So broke away, started my own firm. Worked with a number of other attorneys in the firm for a number of years. Our practice was and continues to be primarily business law and taxation. In the area of taxation, a lot of people don't understand what we as tax lawyers do. It's not really at all like what the accountants do. We're the guys that get involved when either a Department of Revenue or the Internal Revenue Service comes knocking on the door, and there's nothing that the accountants can do to help. It's kind of moved to the next phase where we're either dealing with whether it's state tax court, Board of Tax Appeals, or one of the federal district courts. So that's that side of the practice. On the business law side, what we don't get involved with is litigation. Our relationships with small business, medium business tends to be more long-term. It tends to be transactional, and it tends to involve a lot of planning. Just to give you an example, there's a lot of conversation right now concerning the presidential election. Doesn't really matter your political belief. The business guys are very interested in what if Biden, for example, gets elected. And they're calling, asking about what will happen if he is elected. And it's dramatic, and there are some real planning opportunities. Those are the kinds of conversations we have with our clients. How do we get involved? And of course, there's always the ongoing maintenance and transactional work. But that hopefully I give you a little bit of a background on where we come from. I did, Corey, if I could take a second.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming the format is that this is somewhat interactive.
Yes, please.
Carmen, I wonder if I could ask you, could you elaborate a little bit on the services your organization provides to the micro businesses?
Oh, sure, I'm happy to. So MISO has been around as a nonprofit for over 16 years, and we have a suite of services that we offer to our clients. They are income eligible clients that have to go through our program, but basically we have one-stop technical assistance, and we do things from business planning, marketing, finance. We have a lending program that lends up to $500,000. We've recently deployed, by the time we're done, we'll probably deploy over $9 million worth of grants from the state. And a lot of that is through cities and counties that we're working with. We are now in all the tri-counties at this point. We work with lots of relationships with attorneys, CPAs that help support our small businesses. And so, we really feel that MISO is a well-rounded, comprehensive program for small businesses. My role is I'm the regional program manager for MISO in the technical assistance side. And you could probably send someone to me, and we'll be able to provide services on some level. So, that's really what our mission is to really support those that don't necessarily have the opportunity. We work with a lot of folks that are unbankable. So we do things like Credit 101, the education component of that, and getting people their credit score higher so that they can go to traditional lending. We would do things, I'll work with someone on their business plan. Our IDA program through the IDA initiative is a grant that we have been administering for over 5 years now, and that is a 1-to-3 match for businesses. And that's basically businesses can save up to $1,000, and we give them $3,000, and we do that 3 times. So within 26 months, we're able to provide $9,000 to a business while they save $3,000. So that's $12,000 really for their business. And of course, there's a lot of components around that. I could take up a lot of time just talking about what we do, and I don't want to take up that space. But let me put my email into the chat, and I'm happy for folks to contact us, or how we can connect. So
if I could follow up just with one question, and I'm not asking you to get into detail, your financial cutoffs for assisting people, how large does it go in term, and what's the measurement?
Our financial portfolio is per business is about $500,000. I mean,
is
on
that
average,
gross?
because we, yes, for lending, yes. And it's up to 500,000. I think the largest we've deployed is a little over 300,000. Our default rate is incredibly low, but also understand that because we work with lots of folks that are unbankable, we work with a lot of small loans to get them to that point where they can lend. So,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Any other questions?
All right, great. Thank you, Carmen. Thank you, Greg, for reminding me to let everyone know that this is very much an interactive conversation today, and we hope that as you have questions, comments, feel free to raise your hand, get our attention in some way, and we'll let you speak. So With that, let's go ahead and jump into some of the questions that we have prepared. First of all, let's start, Shannon, I'll direct this at you. Why is it important to partner with some key advisors?
Great question, Corey. So one of the observations that I've made with working with business owners over the past several years is that you understand, as the business owner, your industry in full, and you know exactly what you're doing. But that said, I've worked with doctors and dentists, contractors, plumbers, you know, all of the different trades that you specialize in your craft, but it's challenging to also master the business skills sometimes, because your skill set really is what your specialty is. So when it comes to finding a key advisor bench to really set your business up for success, again, it's having this extension of, you know, team members who support you, that really kind of bring that level of expertise to your fingertips. A lot of the times, you know, you don't have to hire an in-house bookkeeper per se, because you can bring on that accounting service that offers that for you. And what this panel does is it really brings together professionals who can help you organize, manage, grow, and protect your business all at the same time. Depending on the nature of your business, you may be able to turn to additional outside experts from time to time for consulting purposes. But when you really take into consideration the level of, you know, bench that you should have backing your business, you are always going to need a banker and an attorney, and an accountant. So really remembering to focus on those key areas. It's kind of like the insurance comment, where you need to have an insurance policy before you get in your car accident, not the other way around. You know, the same goes with having an attorney on hand, and on retainer, or having an accountant who you can talk tax strategy with, or again, a banker who can help you navigate additional lending opportunities, or, you know, help you get to that next level of funding. So.
Okay, great, thank you. Mario, you want to chime in on that question?
So, what do I do for businesses, you mean?
Yeah, so the question is just, why is it important to have some advisors, some key advisors to guide and direct you?
Well, particularly entrepreneurs tend to have, when they get an idea to start up a business, it's they're very good. They tend to be very good technicians. They're really good at what they do. They might be good at developing business. They might be good at providing a specific service or producing a particular a widget. And so they tend to be very good in those areas. But they have blinders. They can only, so as the business grows, things start showing up. Well, there's this thing called bookkeeping and accounting. There's this thing called taxation. There's this thing called banking relationships. There's this thing called what form of legal entity should you be? How does that affect your taxation? What kinds of documents do you need to have in place to make sure you're in compliance with things? So having a good team of advisors sounds expensive, but it's really not. If your advisors are good and they're efficient, then it doesn't cost that much to do that. But what it does is it helps to create a strong foundation for the entrepreneur so that they can take their business to the next level. And so that's what we do as a firm. We're all about business efficiency. And we're trying to put together the systems and the processes to make all of the compliance type stuff as simple and easy as possible. We like partnering with people like Shannon to establish banking relationships ahead of time before you really need them. And with people like Greg, I've worked with Greg for, Greg, I don't know how many years we've been working together. But, you know, getting the right form of entity, getting the right documents in place, making sure that the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, and strategizing on certain business combinations. Like Greg and I are working right now on a client that's interested in selling their business. So we're providing advisory services to make sure they're getting a fair deal and they're not signing documents they shouldn't sign and that kind of thing. So working with an advisory group of trusted advisors is really beneficial for, especially for clients that are wanting to emerge and grow very dramatically.
Great, thank you. Greg, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think from a slightly different perspective, I think all three of the different professions that we're talking about today, at least, if you can develop a relationship with that business person, and I don't mean a cup of coffee relationship, I mean a long-term relationship, and you actually get to understand the vision that that person has for their business, whether it's the banker, the accountant, or the attorney, we can serve as kind of guardrails, if you will, as your business progresses over time. It's real easy to get diverted off of your overall mission or away from your vision. And sometimes we can actually act as those guardrails that you need to stay on track. The other thing that's important about that is that quite often what you'll find is that because we understand what you're trying to accomplish with your business, we can actually kind of plan ahead. We can see that there's going to be a need for a loan, and we can make sure that the documentation is in place before you get there, so that when you do go in to talk with Shannon, it's a very simple process rather than going back and going, oh my gosh, I got to do all these different things and I got to put all of this together. I think the other thing that not too many people understand is the broad spectrum of clients that we see and the different ideas on how to accomplish different things. And literally ideas can be cross-pollinated across industry. I've had one client that's in the security business, alarms and such. I've been with him for a long time, and I understand his business. I have a relatively new client that in all things is in lawn maintenance. You wouldn't think there's anything similar, but that would be incorrect. There's a lot of similarity in how the security company built their business over a long period of time. And then we've got this kind of younger upstart, and he's biting at the bit. He wants to grow his business, but he's trying to do it all by organic means. The security company used those organic means to grow theirs to get to a certain platform, and then started acquiring accounts. Last time I met with the lawn service company, we talked about that as a possibility. Never even dawned on them that would be a way to grow their company, other than just going out and literally knocking on doors asking if somebody wants their lawn taken care of. It's an interesting, that's just one example, but we see that a lot, whether it's in manufacturing that somehow applies to their processes, apply to something going on in a retail or an office setting. You don't see that, and those type of conversations can literally change the course of a business. And I think that's something you get by developing these longer term relationships with whether it's the banker, the accountant, or the attorney, because we all see a lot of different sides to those businesses. So there's my 2 bits.
Great, thank you. So you each, I think, kind of touched on this a little bit, but let me ask the question as it specifically relates to your field of expertise. What can you, in your specific role as either a banker or an attorney, offer a business? Mario, why don't we start with you this time?
What can I offer a business?
Yeah, as far as an accountant goes, like what should a new company, a startup, if somebody's looking for an advisor, what should he be expecting from his accountant?
Well, our approach is, again, all about business efficiency. So we want to set up the right accounting system. The way we do everything in the cloud now. So we set up a document management system. All of the receipts and invoices and everything go into that system. They get published into the accounting software. we made our accounting software with the banks and the credit card companies, so all the transactions flow into the accounting software every day. And that takes a lot of the drudgery out of data entry stuff. And so we, as a company, we provide weekly financial statements to our clients because we go in and we reconcile the bank every week. So they know where they're at now. Getting a monthly financial statement is helpful, but small businesses are very they tend to be very cash sensitive. And so we set up our accounting and bookkeeping systems with our clients to make sure that they have the right amount of cash in the right place at the right time. We also believe that companies should be profitable from day one and not have to wait for years to be profitable. So we help them to structure their company to make sure they're making money. And we help them with pricing models, with cost models. We help them making decisions about asset acquisitions and looking at what the return on that investment will be and when that money comes back in to replenish their cash. Lots of decisions like that. We also do more longer-term strategic planning. So we're looking out 3 to 5 years into where they want to go as a company, and bring it back to now and create that roadmap for getting there. And then we work with them in 90-day segments to create a rolling business plan so that it's constantly updated every 3 months and refreshed, so that they're actually moving in that direction, and they have the right measurements and everything to see that they're doing that. So that's what we do. There are bookkeepers out there that just do bookkeeping. There are accountants out there that just do tax work and they review financial statements. That's not the right fit for us. We're not a compliance type company. We like to, like Greg was talking about, we really like to get in deep with our clients and work with them and really help them all along the path there.
Yeah, great. Greg, how about from an attorney's perspective?
Well, again, realizing what we're talking about, kind of an ongoing business attorney's perspective as opposed to like the litigation guys, which, I mean, our personalities are different, our practices are different. It's just a different ball game. But I think that one of the things that we can do, one of the things I try to do with most of my business clients, and it depends on how large the business is, but I really want to meet with them at least twice a year. And it's more of a listening session for me. I mean, I just want to hear what's going on? What are they doing? If it's a rather tight margin type of company, I wouldn't even mind taking a look at the financial and have them explain to me what's going good and what's going bad. That helps me. If I have that information, then I know how to direct information back to them. I think that by doing that, their ideas on where they're going, I can offer value just as a sounding board. Again, back to the guardrail analogy. If the company is going through, growing through different levels, if we understand what that business is doing and where it's going, we can actually help them prepare as they move through those levels. Maybe they're taking on some additional employees, for example, and they're crossing some threshold on the number of employees. And all of a sudden, they have a whole new set of rules that they need to comply with. That's something that we can talk about in one of these more informal meetings. And a lot of these meetings actually end up being a lunch someplace. It's not a let's go sit at the conference room table and talk about this. It needs to be relaxed. But I think that's the kind of thing that we can offer. Obviously, there's all the technical assistance, preparation of documents, compliance matters, all that. That should be a given. But I think when you're talking about young companies, what they want to be looking for is someone that will actually actually engage with them and their ideas. So there's my thoughts on it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Shannon?
Thank you. So the nice thing about banking today is that gone are the days that banking services and having a dedicated relationship manager or point of contact was only available to large corporations. Now all sizes of businesses can access services and solutions that historically were reserved for those large corporations and companies. That includes everything from treasury management, tools with sweep accounts, positive pay to help protect your security in your business, and help you gain those financial efficiencies. Some companies, it depends on the bank that you're working with, but some banks such as Banner Bank, we also offer an entire trade finance department with an international component. So if you're exporting or importing goods, there's additional services that your bank can offer. So what it really means is at the end of the day, regardless of who you're banking with, your banker should be more than just a loan officer. And you really shouldn't think of your banker as only a loan officer. As a banker myself, I encourage you to partner with all financial experts, but more than that, it should be somebody that you trust and who should take the time to understand you, your industry, and your company. That's what's really essential. Your banker should be someone that you feel comfortable calling at any time, asking questions or bouncing ideas by them, and not just be there when your line is up for renewal or when you need that new piece of equipment, just to process the paperwork for you. You want someone who really offers you solutions forward thinking, help your money, not you work harder. So it's all about that work harder, or work smarter, not harder component. And when you have a banker who's there really in your corner, that's key. The ideal here is to, again, have a banker who knows you and your company well enough to help you anticipate your needs for long-term financing as well as other solutions. This type of expert can help you guide you through any changes in the economy, and help you make recommendations for long-term profitability in mind. Right now with COVID and the pandemic, we are seeing a completely different level of communication, and it's I think that it's kind of alarming how some banks have taken the default of, I don't know the answer, so I'm just not going to call you back, and that's the wrong answer across the board. Your banker should really be there to help you and help you navigate those changes as they come up. And you shouldn't be ashamed or worried to share changes with your banker. If you're going through a divorce or if you've had a death in the family, that can significantly impact your business. And so while it's personal, very personal, it does also impact your business long-term profitability and functionality. And that is very relevant to your banker. Your banker can also help, again, connect you with key advisors and strategies. I recently was unable to lend money to an individual due to credit challenges. And as a result, reached out to other people in my network who I knew did more hard money type private lending and were always interested in getting more into, you may receive that higher interest rate. But that's a solution and a strategy because I have a network of people that I know, and I now know, what the need is and who may be able to best help them. The other thing too is a lot of business owners, succession planning is a good example. My aunt is a prime example of this. She is an attorney, and her business is, her name at law, and her business, she doesn't have a retirement. Everything is in her business. And so she says to me one holiday last year, I don't have, there's no value to my business, but I can't retire because all of my money and all my funds and everything that pays for my worth and my life is in my business. And I tell her, well, why don't you just sell the business or bring in an associate? And she says, well, I am the business, so there's no value there, which is a completely wrong approach. You have a book of business and you can utilize that to your benefits and bring in an associate, have the associate buy you out or buy all of your client base and still stay on as retainer so you can still continue to have residual income and follow up. So again, it's just about strategy and talking long term, and how can your banker help you get creative to really accomplish those goals and dreams. And if you don't have a banker that you're comfortable having those conversations with, then you should find a new banker. You know, it is what it is. We work with who we want to work with, and if you don't trust your banker to have those harder conversations, then that's probably a problem.
If I may add something to that, thank you, Shannon, for that. We are constantly talking to our clients and business folks and saying, you are actually the customer.
Yeah.
Please remember that. And for every dollar you put in a bank, they make 12 bucks. So, you know, so really you shop around for your banker and create that relationship. And what we have found is, even during this PPP and the pandemics, those folks that did have a relationship with their bankers were able to move those processes through. So, you know, thank you for the work that you do and not turning people away, because that really makes a difference.
I had a comment also. I'm glad that Carmen has joined us in this, because one of the things, I actually had a two-part question. One is, maybe Mario and Greg could talk a little bit more about the types of businesses. Obviously, whether they're industrial, manufacturing, a barbershop, you know, what kinds of businesses you work with. And then number two, for those businesses that may not yet be bankable or be able to get to Banner Bank just yet, is there a possibility of all of you perhaps working with Carmen? And Meso does amazing things. When I went over and visited you in northeast Portland, I was just amazed by the work that you're doing. And I really want to get the word out that there's opportunities to make the connection. So I just wanted to bring that up as a comment and a question.
Yeah, I think, I mean, from a banking perspective, I know you directed the question primarily towards Mario and Greg, but from a banking perspective, we bank, you know, most industries across the board. But absolutely, you know, I do right now partner with and send clients to Greg and Mario both, and like kind. And that's where, again, it's a good example of partnership, because when I have a client who needs to change their business structure, I can send them to Greg for their new formation and their long-term legal strategy. And then if I have a client that has questions about accounting or needs additional accounting services, I refer that individual over to Mario. And again, like kind, that goes the other way around. Mario will call me and say, I've got a client, it's unique, this is what are your thoughts? And Mario has a really robust group of bankers that he can bounce ideas off of. And he now knows, as an expert, you know, which bank specializes in what and who is probably going to be the highest likelihood for success. But Carmen, I have written your email down, so I would love to connect with you after, because I do think that would be a good area for, again, like the gentleman I mentioned who we were unable to help. I would love to connect you with him, because I think that it would be of value.
Sure, we have people that come in and teach all the time, you know, businesses, CPAs, attorneys, and, you know, teach topics for our clients. And so, you know, we have a program that we're constantly reaching out to the local community so that people know that they are supported and they are welcomed in these spaces. So thank you.
That would be great, Carmen, to connect with you on that basis. There's something about giving back to the community that does such a great job for me and my family. We just feel a calling, so to say, to give something back and to provide help wherever we can. Not always doing it for money, but doing it just to help out sometimes. So we have this bend for that. I just got a call on, it was on Tuesday, from one of Shannon's colleagues that she works with. She's got a client that was in distress. He wanted to know whether he should shut his business down. There were some really serious things going on there, and he'd had this business, or his dad had the business, and he took it over, and you know, it's like 20, 30-year-old business, And he was really discouraged about it and wanting to just walk away from it. And, I basically gave him some things to think about, talked him off the ledge and say, look, don't make any decisions. Just think about it overnight. And you can go this way, you can go this way. In this particular case, I had a client that would likely be very interested in acquiring his business. I said, you've got an asset here. So you don't have to walk away from this thing and just shut it down. Or if you want to, we can shore it up and get it running right and performing the way it should be performing. And it was really nice to be able to get a call from a Banner Bank representative that thought enough to say, hey, why don't you call this guy and just run this by him? And so he called me back yesterday and said, I've been thinking about it. I talked to my wife, and basically she clubbed me across the head and said, you idiot, you do have something here. Get going.
I have to say, when the COVID thing hit, it was so devastating to so many businesses.
Oh, no kidding.
And we immediately, we brought home our laptops and we said, let's get to work. We called every single business. We work with over 250 businesses long term.
That all?
And yeah, that's all. And none of them have closed. We basically talked to a lot of people off the ledge from closing. And actually they've done better because their competitions have closed. And then we've helped them pivot online. We've launched over 12 websites during this time. I mean, it's just phenomenal what business can do when they feel like they're supported. So I think this community is what we need, to continue that technical assistance for these businesses, for sure.
Small, medium businesses has always been where our employment growth occurs in the USA. Not just, people are always talking about the big businesses, and, they lay off 5,000 people or 20,000 people, and they're moving things around. And the most stable source of employment growth opportunity is with small, medium businesses. And it's always great to be able to work in that environment and support them.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Let's move on to our next question. So there's been some reference to this. Mario mentioned earlier that he and Greg are working together with a company looking to sell their business. And you talked a little bit about referring clients to other colleagues and how that's been helpful. But if I'm a business owner and I have Mario and Shannon and Greg in my corner, what should my expectations be for them working together on my behalf? How much should they be communicating? How much should I be directing those conversations? Should they be conversing on their own? What's the expectation there? Greg, you want to start with that?
Sure. I think probably the easiest answer is efficiency. If I'm familiar with the expectations and needs, let's say that Mario has as we're entering this transaction that he mentioned earlier, there's information that I need to put together documentation. There's information that he needs back from me in terms of, what are the terms? How is that going to affect his numbers? Because we have worked so long, we communicate very easily, almost in a shorthand style, to where I can literally send him an email or text him and say, look, I need this. And within, usually within a day, it's there. And I can continue. Well, that saves the client money. It's a relationship that I have with Mario that it just makes it easier to help the client. And I think I know that's the same. I've got similar relationships with some of the bankers in our area. I'm hopeful to create that same type of relationship with Banner Bank. it's just an efficiency. It's a cost savings. And I think a lot of clients view it as an expense. And they just don't realize the amount of time it takes when you're dealing with someone you've never dealt with before. I'm kind of struggling with the answer, but for me, from my perspective, that's really the key to it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Shannon. Oh, sorry.
Guys like Greg and I, we've been around. You know, we've been drugged down the road for a number of years, and so the nice thing about us is that when we get a client coming to us, they tend to not be an experiment. You know, but we don't have to learn. We've already been through that. Like Greg was saying, you know, I know Banner Bank pretty well, and I know what kinds of financing they like to do. I know about their financial services area. I know what they do, and so when a client comes to me, I can, within a very short period of time, I'm going to know where the right place to take them is, and I can call Shannon up and say, hey, Shannon, here's the situation. I got a client, and here's what's going on with them. Is this a deal that you can put through? So it's almost like pre-qualifying the client and seeing if it's something that's a good fit. And that's the value of working with guys like Greg and I, because we've been down the road, and we have we have connections with other people that we can steer our clients into and get things done very quickly and very efficiently. Effectively is probably a better word for them.
Thank you, Shannon.
Yeah, so I mean, we've definitely touched on this a couple of times. So the value is that each advisor really sees your business through their own unique lens. You know, we all have a different approach and what we're taking into consideration as the most important. And that's the cool thing about it, is when you bring the three advisors together, you really have this like really great thinking tank for your business operations and how to really help you. So the nice thing is that if you as a client give permission for your advisors to speak together about you without you necessarily involved, then we can, again, go do our job and be, to Greg's point, a little bit more efficient in what we're talking about, how we're strategizing and discussing. A prime example is if you have a new loan request and you need to give your banker a set of financials, but your accountant has all your financials. It doesn't necessarily always make sense for you to have to hassle with the headache of doing that. You can easily forward that financial packet request to your accountant and CC your banker on it and say, Mario, can you please provide Shannon with the financials she's listed? And that's the answer. It's the most streamlined and easy process. Furthermore than that, if your banker has a question on why something was maybe depreciated on an accelerated basis, or why did you change your tax strategy? I recently just had a client encounter where their financials were very odd, and I could see that year over year there was something significant that changed. And what was interesting is I couldn't put my finger on it, but I knew that something significant happened. I was like, there was a tax strategy adjustment that occurred. I don't know what exactly it is. Well, we called the accountant, and sure enough, they went from accrual to cash basis year over year. And that's a huge difference when it comes to tax accounting and filing your tax returns. So if we didn't know that information and hadn't asked that question, the deal would have been declined. But as a result of, again, being able to pick up the phone with the client's consent and having that direct discussion with the accountant, it was very easy to get the answers that we needed and resulted in the client having an approval. I did just want to note too, another example again of a way that your financial advisors can really go to work for you is, it was probably 6 years ago in my banking career where I had a client that they were looking for a new piece of equipment to expand their business. They really needed this new work truck and in order to continue the jobs that they had recently onboarded. Well, I submit the application and the client was declined due to credit challenges, credit issues, recent credit card late pays. just wasn't managing his business finances well. So I referred this client over to an accountant that I was working with. This was down in California. So I referred it over to my accountant contact and said, this is what's up. He really needs accounting support and bookkeeping service support and really kind of needs to fix his credit. So 6 months later, the same client, the accountant, not the client, the accountant sends the client back to me 6 months later and says, everything's fixed. We've got the late pays cleared up. They had actually disputed the late pays and removed the late pays reporting from their credit report. Based on, again, sometimes you can negotiate those things with your creditors. So it was a completely different scenario. It ended up, the vehicle loan ended up being approved on the spot. And then the client was good and well functioning and his business boomed. And that's the type of interaction that you really should have. You really should have your key advisors working for you. Again, if you're moving from a sole proprietorship to an LLC or an S Corp, that's really when, if you say that as a client to your banker should say, you should go talk to an accountant to make sure that you're filing the right documents and filing the right forms. Those are daunting forms. There's so many ways that you could go wrong and not complete your entity goals filing correctly. So making sure that, again, you're staying in touch with all of your key advisors about that. It's not as simple as just changing your company registration sometimes. If you have a new tax ID number, then that could impact your banking account numbers and all of these additional factors that come into play.
That's Greg and I run into this kind of thing all the time. Someone will go online with the Secretary of State's office and form an LLC. And then they think they're done. They don't do the other legal documents that are needed. They don't get the right federal ID number. They don't make the right tax elections for that. And then they end up going down a bad road. And sometimes we can fix that, but a lot of times people just don't know how to manage that kind of thing. And I was just thinking, as Shannon was talking, we're working on a client right now that has 4 different entities, a very complex organizational structure between those entities, and it's a very bankable client. So when I brought them to these guys, I told them, this is going to be a good client for you, and here's why. And even though the structures were very convoluted, and another financial institution that they were with was not wanting to renew their lines of credit, we're able to put some interesting things together and work with a little more flexibility when you have that relationship built, and being able to pass information back and forth very quickly has really helped us to put an opportunity together for this client. And so those are the kinds of things that make a big difference, I think.
Great. So, Mari, your example there of somebody going to the state, filing for an LLC and thinking that they're all done kind of is a good lead into our next question. If you think of the sort of the timeline of the evolution of a business, everything from idea conception to studying it out to figure out if it's a viable business to filing with the state and getting your first sale, at what point should that business owner be seeking out help from an accountant, an attorney, and a banker?
Well, it's the difference between ready, aim, fire, and ready, fire, aim. By doing it on the front end, you create a strong foundation that you can build upon very quickly. When you pull the trigger and fire, and then you try to chase the bullet to get it to hit the target that you want, it takes a lot more work to do that. It sucks up the energy of the entrepreneur in an emerging business, and it tends to you end up fighting fires, and that's difficult, because when you fight fires, then everything becomes important, and it's very difficult to prioritize and keep your focus on what you really need to do as a business. So I think starting it right on the front end makes a lot of difference. Greg probably has some opinions about that as well.
Well, I think we can all make a case for, oh yeah, I'm the guy they ought to call first. But so many of the small businesses, the cost of the services, it's a real factor. I was working with a young woman a couple of weeks ago who was right in the middle of everything that's going on, is starting a new business. She had done the online filing, and that was it. But she also had to have a lease reviewed for some retail space she was going to occupy. And we worked together with her to get the lease reviewed. And I warned her the same way I warn a lot of the smaller clients that we have. You may be able to defer some of this, particularly the legal orientated work, for some time, but don't let it go too long. At some point, it becomes exponentially more expensive to come back and fix or complete than if you did it initially. I understand not all entrepreneurs have the cash reserve, or they have demands for cash that don't necessarily include hiring an attorney. That's okay. Most of the time we can fix it at a later date or complete it at a later date. But you don't want to let it go on for years. I had a small client not too long ago that hadn't done anything for 4 years. I mean, literally since the day they went into business. And there was a tremendous amount of legal work that needed to be done so that they could go visit with a banker. And it was quite a bit more expensive because so much had happened during that time. I'll give you another example. We had another client that, what was this? This was about a month and a half ago. I mean, this is probably as bad as I've ever seen it. They formed an LLC back in like 2013 and hired a bookkeeper, not an accountant, just a bookkeeper, somebody to run payroll, and they were keeping track of, kind of the bank statements on Quicken. And there were a number of members in the LLC. Well, a couple of the members left the LLC, and it triggered some tax issues. There was a technical termination of the LLC, and this little bookkeeper filled out the form and checked a box. Unfortunately, it was the wrong box. It said that the company had been terminated, period.
Oh.
5 years pass. 5 years pass. I've never seen this before. 5 years pass, and this little company has a conversation with the Internal Revenue Service over some back taxes. Not a big deal. It wasn't going to kill them. The IRS agent forced the company to liquidate because 5 years ago they checked the wrong box on the form. Figure that one. And they forced it. The company had to completely liquidate and then reincorporate under a new name with a different set of owners. There couldn't be a continuation of ownership. I mean, it was the craziest thing I've seen in a long time, but it's real. That was something that the owner, had they had a team in place that understood what was going on, the company had the money at that time. The operating money wasn't the question. It wouldn't have been a problem. But the little bookkeeper didn't know the difference between one box and the next. I probably kind of digressed off the question, but it was such a jarring experience to go through with them. And candidly, the IRS was right. There was no, oh, can't we sweep this under the rug?
That's crazy.
I got a question.
Yeah.
I'm interrupting.
That's okay. Go ahead, Bruce.
Go ahead, Bruce.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure I was on. So you talk about the advisory work that you provide, really the three of you provide. And I'm wondering if you also refer people to other experts, maybe buy and sell business experts, or I know Greg works on leases, but to maybe the broker or brokers, or how do you do that, or do you do that in essence?
I think, I'll take a shot at that. I think that what I've found is that I find a lot more referrals come at me than leave. I mean, than I extend. The reason is usually a client will already have, they'll already have an accountant, or they'll already have a business broker if they're looking for, a company to buy, maybe a location to secure, something like that. The client quite often in my business, the client quite often already has those relationships. Not so much with the bankers. Unfortunately, a lot of the small and medium-sized companies don't have a relationship with a bank. They've got a checking account and they may have a couple of other services, but they don't think, kind of echoing what Shannon was saying earlier, they don't think about the value that banker can provide on a long-term basis. They just don't think about it. And to the extent that, I'll probably talk with Shannon after we get done here, because I've got a client that has no relationship, that has a need, and it'll be that kind of sounding board kind of conversation. But for me, typically, it's the accountants that are bringing their clients to me because they know that that client has a need that's in the area that I work. Occasionally, I over the years, I have had bankers bring people to me, particularly, it was kind of crazy back in the Great Recession, when there was so much turmoil and so many companies were hurting. Again, there was kind of we have kind of a unique background as tax/business lawyers. We're a hybrid of sorts. And, we see that. But our opportunity to refer out as a law firm, quite limited actually over the years.
Yeah. And
I think one last comment, if I can. I think one of the things that is important, I know this to be a fact, it's important that we kind of do the meet and greet in the community with governmental officials, quasi-governmental. It's important we know what's going on. That's a different type of situation. If I know that Carmen's services are being offered and I've got a company that could use them, I didn't know before today that you existed. Now I do. I mean, those type of referrals are different than the professional to professional referral. So I think it's important for us to get out and meet people and find out what's going on. And you don't just get to do it like, well, I went to a meeting in 2015, so I know. It's too dynamic anymore. Things change too fast. And they're going to change quicker, I believe, as we continue through this process. My apologies, Shannon, for stepping on you.
No, that's okay. I was just going to say, so we bankers are quite opposite of what Greg just noted from an attorney perspective, because oftentimes a new business or a small business owner will walk into a bank to open a checking account and really doesn't know what they're doing or where they're going. They don't really know what they necessarily need at that time. And so the banker really becomes that kind of initial, the initial person that really can drive that consultant conversation. I in 99% of the times when I really am talking to a small business owner, I always ask to make sure they've got an accountant on on their, on speed dial, and then also an attorney from the legal perspective, because those are all really important factors. To Greg's point, you can start a banking relationship before you have anything else set up, but reminding your clients on a regular basis that these are the things that your bankers are going to need. These are the things that long-term you're going to need as a business owner as you prep your business for, for needing to be bankable or financing or anything like that. It's stuff like that where it's such a back thought. And the other thing about bankers, which again is kind of a hilarious thought process, but we're the only advisor that you have that you're not paying for on a retainer or on an hourly basis. In fact, most bankers, if you say, hey, let's get lunch or coffee, the banker will pay for lunch. So
I'll remember that, Shannon.
No, I'm serious. Like we love corporate cards. It's one of those things where, go have a conversation. And, and I oftentimes have sent clients back to, again, I referenced the accountant in California I used to work with quite a bit. He and I had a really good working relationship where he would actually meet with clients on their annual review and then say, okay, you're looking for a line of credit, and then would connect them with me via email and or just send me their financials directly and say, the client's looking for a line of credit. What do you think? Without even involving the client at that point. And then the client is then introduced later once that step comes to play. But I think, again, like the banking step is oftentimes one of the first steps. And so from a banker perspective, and Bruce, to answer your question, we as bankers, we do a lot of outside networking events as well. And we do know a lot of commercial real estate brokers on the lease side and the selling side. So those are people that we readily do connect clients with. Like, oh, you're looking for a retail space in downtown Portland or in the city of Sherwood, in Tualatin. Perfect. I have a broker who specializes in that area and knows exactly what's about to come on the market. So why don't I connect you with them? And if you guys are able to connect, then great. It's no skin off my back if they don't actually connect or if the client wasn't serious, but at least, I tried to make an introduction, and that's the biggest factor, because, what the people that I know aren't going to be the same people that Carmen knows or that Bruce knows. And so just making it, again, being more of that connector in the small business community to make sure that that small business owner is set up for the most possible, successful outcome.
And just to augment what Greg and Shannon said, for me, it's all about working with integrity with a client. I have clients that come to me and they're not ready for bookkeeping and accounting. And that's fine. So I'll give them some advice on how to get started up and launch and not send them a bill. So that's part of me giving something back to the community. I think a lot of it is, just like Greg was saying, I think he said it very well, that things are changing so fast. We can't keep up on everything. So we try to do what we do really, really well. And we have connections with people that can help out in other peripheral areas. And I get more opportunity than Greg does to refer people, just like Shannon does. So, I'm the guy that refers people to the banks and to commercial realtor if they need to lease some property, or, just different things like that. If we need specific a website built or a marketing thing that a campaign that a client needs to launch, I don't do that. I don't want to do that. I'm not the most efficient guy. I don't know what the latest search things are in Google. So I rely upon people that I know do that. And that's really just about all they do. So they bring a level of expertise into the conversation that gets the client scooting down the road a little better.
Great. So I want to touch on something that Shannon mentioned. You've all actually mentioned it in one way or another, and that is costs and fees and free lunches. what should an entrepreneur or somebody looking to start a business, what kind of fee structure should they expect from, Mario, let's start with you, from an accountant, from, you know, is it a retainer? Is it an hourly thing? You know, I think there's this, maybe it's because we watch too much TV, but, you know, we have this perception that if I call to wish you a happy birthday, you're going to charge me $100 for your time on the phone.
And that is the case with some people. We tend to, it's very rare that we work on an hourly basis. Most of our work is done on fixed fee. But when I like, our lowest level of bookkeeping service is $300 a month. Come on with us, and you just need some very basic bookkeeping services. $300 a month. We supply all the software for that. Plus, take care of the weekly financial statements. You can bank reconcile, and you're going to get really good service for that. You know, so that's our lowest level, and then we go up from there. We have 2 different levels based on like we're actually an outsourced accounting department for some of our clients. We have a concierge type service where we pay their bills for them. We take care of their accounts payable. We help them manage their cash. We even invoice their customers in certain circumstances. So we can go from very basic level to a full service concierge type service. As far as business coaching goes, you know, I don't want my clients to feel like they're sitting in the back of the taxi watching the meter run every time they call me. So we tend to work on a fixed fee basis and say, okay, it's going to be, depending on what level you want, let's meet twice a month, and let's take a couple hours here and a couple hours here, and let's charge a fee that makes sense. And in the meantime, if something happens and you call me up, fine, we take care of it. Send me an email, I respond to an email. We don't nickel and dime our clients. They don't want surprise bills, so our clients don't get them. That's how we think about it. And okay. Greg, I don't see Greg, but I hope he talks about his new entity that he's working on. Shannon, maybe you can run up while Greg's out.
Yes, I hope he talks about it as well. So we'll make sure to remind him about that. So from a banking perspective, you know, banking services they start as free hypothetically, right? You can find a free small business checking account. Usually most financial institutions have that. What then again starts to add to the monthly fees or the maintenance is going to be the services that you need associated with it. And oftentimes depending upon your checking account balance that you have, your fees can still be waived. But if you're not carrying a certain amount in deposits on a monthly basis or on a daily average collected basis, then there may be fees associated with those additional services, depending upon what you're doing, what you need, and again, what your balances are that you're carrying in your account. From a lending perspective, it's very common to see, on commercial real estate transactions, your standard loan fee is going to be 3/4 of a point to 1 full point. Based upon the loan amount. Equipment financing, depending upon what type of equipment you're purchasing, the fee could be as low as $250. It could be as high as, 500 or 0.5%, depending upon what the structure is and really the creativeness that you need. And again, it depends. Every bank is different. So asking those questions to figure out, a bank can provide a small business a pro forma. So if you're currently banking at, let's say, US Bank, and you wanted me to review your banking fees as of your last 2 or 3 months, you can provide me a bank statement, and we can run a side-by-side comparison of what the fee would be between US Bank and Banner Bank. So if you're ever looking to figure out what that's going to be, you should be interviewing, if you're considering changing banks, you should be interviewing the banker and also looking at the fees on an apples to apples comparison. That's again, it's a really important factor there. And sometimes, the new bank that you're going to may not be able to save you money, but if you again have a good relationship with your banker, your banker should feel comfortable saying, I can't save you any money. And, and that's then up to the business owner on whether it makes sense to transition their banking overall. I had a client recently who the recommendation from Banner Bank was not to move your checking account over, because they had a really robust kind of fee waiver on their account at another institution, and they were grandfathered in on these really low wires, and they were doing a significant amount of wires on a monthly basis. So our services were actually going to be approximately $180 a month greater than what they were currently at. So the initial conversation happens. They brought over some of their banking, but not their entire operating relationship, which we knew. And again, that was what we advised. So fast forward 9 months later, the client needs additional funds from a lending limit. And the bank that they were saving money with on their monthly operating account, that bank was refusing to lend them money. So Banner Bank was able to do the loans and grant the loans and the line of credits consistently for this client. But we were, again, higher on the checking account fees based upon the services that they needed. So what ended up resulting in our underwriting team, we really pride ourselves on full relationship banking services. So the underwriter had said, why is it that the client didn't transition their full banking over? And I was able to showcase, this was actually our recommendation. We recommended they stay where they were at based upon the fee structure. So we went back and communicated that to the client. Okay, we'll approve this third loan for you. But again, it's going to be challenging long-term to extend additional credits based on the fact that you haven't transitioned your banking over. The client turns around and says, I am happy to move my banking relationship over. I don't care that your banking relationship is more expensive, because you lend me money and you want to work with me. So because of that, I want to work with you. And again, they weren't able to find the cost for the equipment and the line of credit. Their big bank that they were working with had zero interest in working with this business from a lending perspective. So while hypothetically we were costing them a bit more money, we were actually really helping their business grow and thrive. So that's, again, it's just kind of a funky example, but kind of comes to banks are very different, and the fee structures can be compared apples to apples. And depending on who you're working with, it's okay to say my services are more expensive, and that shouldn't necessarily be a huge red flag either if it's coming with additional products that help you grow. Greg, I'll kick it over to you. The question was, talk to us about fee structures for business owners and what can be expected, but we'd love to hear you talk about also your new law group that you're building out.
Sure. And I apologize for stepping away. All of a sudden my screen started flashing that my battery was almost gone. So I needed to scramble and get the charger hooked up. I think first the fee structure, it's going to vary a lot. And I think when you're talking with, young companies in particular, they shouldn't be intimidated. They shouldn't be nervous about talking to maybe a series of firms, attorneys, about what it would cost for whatever the particular piece of work is. If we start with our kind of timeline, if we're talking about the organization of a company, something that I've been doing for a long time is that's actually an area where we can give you a fixed price, for a package. What is it going to take to put this together? And there are very few variables in that process where the price may have to go up a little bit. But that's fairly easy to do. As far as year in and year out working with organizations, I experimented with this concept a long time ago, and it was again a way to maintain connections with clients. They like it. They like it a lot. We charge a fee on an annual basis, and for that fee, we serve as registered agents for their entity, which is not a big deal, but it's something. We also include I mentioned earlier, I try to meet with my clients at least twice a year. Those are just part of the deal. It's a no charge meeting or luncheon, if you will, to get together and just talk about what's going on. That's kind of built into that. And then to the extent that there is an annual meeting, which I really encourage people to do, even if it's just them, we'll put together either some kind of a memorandum for the year, or if we're in the corporate setting, a set of minutes. That's all included in that package. And I'll tell you, it's something that it's not terribly expensive. It helps us. Businesses inevitably need attorneys. It's just going to happen. It's not if, it's when. And it doesn't have to be a bad thing. I mean, there's a lot of positive things that happen in a business's life that require legal expertise. So that when that lease review comes up, or they're putting together some kind of an incentive program for their, whether it's the foreman, the junior executives, the senior executives, those type of things. Maybe they're buying a product line from a company, not the entire business. Those are things where we typically revert back into hourly charges, because there are so many variables. We don't know. We know that the clients want certainty on cost. I can't give that to you. Every deal has a quirky thing to it. And sometimes it's quicker, sometimes it takes longer. I can't predict that. So that's kind of what we see from our perspective in terms of costs. I am working on, in fact, I'm implementing now. It's a program that I've been working on for the last 2 years, just developing it. And it's a combination of a number of hopeful solutions to problems, and part of what we're talking about today. What I've got is I've actually formed a subsidiary to the law firm, which is another law firm. And that law firm will be offering discounts to small business on the fees. The business will be, whatever time they incur, they'll be charged at normal, what I call associate rates, which would be a junior attorney at those rates. And then depending upon the gross receipts, the gross annual receipts of a business, how large is it, how profitable is it, there'll be a discount applied. For most small businesses, that discount will be 50%. For the mediums, it'll be at 25%. And for companies that are making good money, that have the ability to pay, which is not who we're targeting, they can go to a traditional law office and pay full bore. But for our small clients, this is kind of a way of trying to match their ability to pay and the cost of legal service. Now, it's not really the catch, but it's kind of the how can we do it? It'll be young lawyers that staff that. It won't be the senior attorneys. It'll be the young lawyers. It'll tend to be essential legal services. It won't be the real, kind of crazy stuff that we get involved in every now and then. But it's something that if you need a company formed and you need a operating agreement or a shareholders agreement, you need a lease reviewed for, some retail space that, quite frankly, nobody's going to be able to alter it anyway because the landlord has their agreement. But those leases can be reviewed, and the client can at least be informed as to, look, you need to know what you're getting into here. Those kind of things. That's fully within the realm of experience of the young attorney. And quite candidly, as you get older in this business, the young clients really don't want to hang out with you. So you either need young lawyers as part of your stable, or you just deal with old people all the time. That's just reality. So anyway, and that's the business side of that program. There is also a individual and family side that we'll be slowly moving into, that will also be covering estate planning, family law, those type of things. And those are tied to taxable income or gross income, adjusted gross income of the individual or family. And there's a whole series of discounts that apply to those people also. At this point, we're implementing it in Clark County to try to work out the kinks. Once we've got this thing kind of fine-tuned, which I expect will take anywhere from 6 months to a year, but once we've got this fine-tuned, then it'll be ready to kind of go on the road, if you will, to where we can expand it throughout Southwest Washington and Oregon. That's kind of the plan for it. Is that there's probably my hunch is there's a big market for this. That we've got a lot of small businesses. I mean, we've got 14,000 small businesses in Clark County. And I know how many of them use lawyers. None. The medium-sized guys do, the large companies do. The small businesses really struggle with it. And the same with families. I mean, we're sitting on, 150, 175,000 households. And the Washington Supreme Court commissioned a study a couple of years ago. And what they found was every household will run into at least 3 legal matters a year. Most of them go unattended to. That could be, a creditor problem. That could be they're renting a house and they want their rental agreement reviewed. I mean, it's all those things. Hopefully we can do the same thing where we're matching ability to pay and cost and get that to where it works for them also. So there's my tip.
Great, thank you. Bruce, did you have a question?
Yeah, maybe I'm still fairly new, a little less than a year here in Oregon, but I haven't come across this particular type of service where the bank is working with an attorney and accountant who really focus on this segment of the market. And I'm wondering if, maybe you don't want to tell me, but I wonder if this is common or not, or whether this is just a very unique business model that Banner and the two of you guys are implementing, which is fascinating to me.
So I think that it's, I started this conversation. This is like my think tank of an idea, but it's the approach that I, as a banker, have taken for basically my entire banking career. I want to make sure that my clients are connected with the right key players to maximize the optimal success. Not all bankers are the same. Not all accountants or attorneys are the same. So that's where, again, great question, Bruce. It really comes down to finding a banker and a banker, accountant, attorney that make the most sense for your business. If you don't want consultant services or recommendations, that's fine too. There's nothing wrong with saying that. But if you need that added support, there are bankers out there who do have a similar thought process and mindset as myself. But again, it's just the way that I take, this is my approach personally.
I would have to kind of agree with your thought there, Bruce. It is unique. I think, as you go through a career, over the years, I've heard a lot of lip service to developing relationships with clients and how important it is and all that kind of stuff. But, when you're new to a particular practice, you're really just looking for work. And that's the reality of it. And, you don't tend to think as much about that client as you do as, the appreciate. I guess what I'm trying to say is I've learned to appreciate that relationship with a client much more as I've matured in my practice than I probably did when I was young, or new to the practice. Back then it was, I've got all these relationships. Well, a relationship back then was probably going and having beer with them once a year. And not really caring about their business, but caring about whether or not they were going to call me. And that's probably kind of an ugly thing to say, but I think that's kind of real. And I think, what we're talking about in this presentation probably is unique. But I think it's also the right way to do it. I really do. So.
And I might just add very, very quickly add that Greg's right. I mean, I remember when I started my accounting practice decades ago, I was checking to see if someone had a pulse and a blood pressure, and let's figure out a way to work with them. And you know, it wasn't a very efficient way to do it. Nowadays, and now that we've got a few decades of experience under us here, you know, we look and I interview the client just like they're interviewing me, and you know, I want to make sure that they're someone that I'm comfortable working with, that we can have an open and honest conversation with. You know, we gotta like them. They gotta like us. So there's a credibility issue, and then there's an approachability issue. You know, do I believe what this client is saying? Do I believe in their business model? Do I think they've got something going on? I've had clients on the business coaching side that have wanted to hire me to do business coaching, and I had one client in particular. They were losing money, and we turned them around, and they were making really good money. And so I said, okay, guys, you're at this level. What's next? They said, well, what do you mean what's next? Well, okay, we're here now. There's more places to go. Where would you like? Let's determine where you want to go from here. You know, well, we're perfectly happy. And so I said, that's great. See you later. You know, I'm not gonna take your money if I'm not creating a return on investment for you. Or the other side to that is I've had situations with clients where I fully believe that we could help them and take their business to another level. I just didn't believe that the players involved could sustain that, either for a number of different reasons, just because of passion for the business or their expertise, and they weren't or they were just, some clients, you know, the definition of insanity, right? They do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. So if they don't really want to change, if they're not ready to make a change and transition and think differently about their business, then they're not a good fit for me, because I know it's not going to happen.
And I'll just add from the business owner perspective, going back to something that Carmen said earlier, I think it's important that they remember that they're the client. And if these relationships are important, that the accountant and the banker and the attorney all talk together, that should be part of the interview process, as Mario said. And
pull the egos out. No egos. No egos.
Right.
Just, it needs to be, you know, you need to be thinking about the good of the client and making sure that the client's getting what they need. You know, this isn't about being territorial.
Right. Well, so we're almost 100 minutes into this, and I've seen various signs of people standing up and stretching, and I do have one more question that I think we've kind of answered in a variety of ways. I'll ask it. If you have any additional thoughts or comments that you haven't added already to help answer the question, feel free to jump in. But so the question is, why is it important to keep your key advisors in the loop, from plans for expansion to personal challenges to succession planning? How can a key advisor help you with those developments? Anything to add beyond what you've already said so far?
Not really.
I don't think so.
I don't.
Kind of an obvious question, you know.
Yeah.
We can only give you our best assistance when, you know, you have open and honest conversations with us. You know, if you're not willing to do that, then I don't think we're going to be a good fit. We can't do our highest and best work unless we have that level of conversation with you.
Well, and from a banking perspective, oftentimes, right, when you want to change, let's say, your ownership structure, or maybe you're selling or buying a partner out, something like that. Oftentimes you've already looped in your accountant, your attorney already knows, everything's already approved, and then you just spring it on your banker like, surprise, this is what we're doing. That's something that you want to avoid at all costs, because depending on your like, right? I had a client do this. It was a nonprofit, and they were buying out kind of a subsidiary of theirs that they worked directly with. Like, my client was the one and only AR vendor that this company that they were merging with had. Well, the merger threw them out of compliance with all lending, because in the loan agreement it said that as a covenant, any ownership changes, percent changes, mergers, etc., all needs to be approved prior to doing it by the bank. So again, it's, as you know that these things are coming up, keeping an open dialogue and not springing that surprise on your banker, because like kind, how would you feel if one of your employees did the same thing to you, like, oh, surprise, I'm going to just go do this thing on my own, and you just need to be okay with it. And so it really is that like respectful relationship, and making sure that you're staying in the most communication, because then your team of advisors is going to help you strategize and help you figure out the right options and avenues, and also help mitigate the risk. Let's say that merger really wasn't a good idea. Maybe that merger was going to actually bring the business down into the negative on an ongoing basis, because they hadn't really thought about the additional expenses that might be incurred from a merger like that. So your advisors are really there to help consult you and guide you through the process. And, just remember, your advisors should also want you to succeed. So we may not always say yes to what you want, but likely there will be some sort of an action plan to get you to where you want in a more thoughtful and well thought out, successful process and manner. So even if your banker again says this isn't a good idea right now, and this is why, just kind of take that as it comes, because your banker should want you to succeed.
Great. Thank you so much. So that, as I mentioned, that concludes all the questions that I have. The quote unquote moderator. Are there any other questions that anybody would like to ask, or any additional comments that any of our panelists would like to add before we close?
I was wondering, maybe somebody else wants to jump in ahead of me, but so Shannon, when you're meeting with a client, obviously you're gonna see that they need accounting help or legal help. So how do you go about encouraging them, because they're going to be fearful of fees and that kind of thing? Do you actually set up a conference call, or it's hard to do physical meetings now? But I just wondered how that relationship evolves.
I oftentimes will ask the question or make the recommendation, and then send a follow-up email with the business owner and the accountant or the attorney, and make an introduction, and just say, Mr. Smith, I'd like to introduce you to Mario. Mario has, a suite of accounting and bookkeeping services that I think that your business would benefit from, as we discussed. And then, following that, Mario, Mr. Business Owner, would like to chat about X, Y, and Z, and I think that your services can help him. Obviously, I have to get permission from the client before I can make that introduction, because it is a, kind of a breach of client confidentiality if I disclose that he's my client. But that said, if the client's okay with it, and if it's going to better their business, most oftentimes they do want that introduction. So it's just a matter of having that kind of conversation up front with the borrower and the client. I do usually make that introduction via email, and then I remove myself oftentimes from the conversation. I don't need to be a part of, and your banker shouldn't necessarily need to be a part of, that discovery call between, client and accountant, or client and attorney. Because again, certain personalities mesh differently with others. And just because I've made an introduction doesn't mean that, it's going to be a good or positive or result in a long-term relationship. That's the hope, but it's really up to the discretion of the client.
I really appreciate the work that you're doing here in this presentation. I know we didn't get a lot of attendees, but I'm so delighted this is recorded. And I really want the information on this to get out to the business community here in Sherwood. I've got to be careful because we're the city government. We can't just refer to one individual or whatever, but both Corey and I want very much to help our businesses to succeed. And obviously, I'm not in the CPA, I'm not an attorney, and so I don't do that kind of work, but I always believe that you need to refer people to others who can be of help to them, and then just kind of get out of the way. Just like I'll push for permits, but then I'll get out of the way and I'll just kind of push quietly on the side. But so I'm just really interested in what you're doing, and I really just want to thank you for doing this. And if you have some thoughts on how we could work together more to help businesses in this community, and I've already reached out in the past to Carmen, and definitely want to work with Carmen and Nita at Meso further. But we're going to grow, and there's going to be lots of opportunities in Sherwood. So we hope that you'll consider those opportunities here. So thank you.
Oh yeah, I've got clients in Florida, California, got one in Australia, got one in Scotland, even one in McMinnville. You know, so I mean, we're all over the place. We're glad to come down to Sherwood. Sherwood's a nice close trip for us.
And we also like foreign direct investment from your Australian clients. Anyway, that's great. I'm going to reach out to you also because we're putting out a grant, 2 grants starting Monday. They're not big money like a bank has, but they're Business Oregon and County CARES Act money that's come to us. And you may have some clients here in this city that could benefit from these programs. So I'm going to just send you some information.
Glad
How
to
much
have
are you deploying, Bruce?
What's that?
How much are you deploying?
Well, it's not a great amount. It's a great amount for any business that gets the benefit of it. The CARES Act money, which is from Washington County, is $248,000 for the entire city. The Business Oregon money is $35,000. We'd asked for $200,000 and we got $35,000. But if that can help 10 businesses with small grants, you know, that's great. Every business counts. So we're getting both programs out at the same time. The state program, as you may know, is a fairly complicated bureaucratic program, but we'll figure it out and just try to help as many businesses as we can. And we're opening the applications on Monday, closing them on Friday. And then we just want to get money out there. We did this back in April with city money, which is hard for the city. So now we're going to try it with some money from CARES Act and from the state. So anyway, just want to mention that. And we did approach Meso. I talked to Nita about maybe they wanted to manage it, but we weren't ready for that yet. We need to start working with Meso more.
That's
So,
great.
anyway.
I mean, I do have to say, even though it feels like it's not a lot of money for businesses, honestly, for these small businesses, it is huge. I mean, it's the difference between them closing their doors because they can pay their rent and not be behind. So, you know, even that $2,500 for, you know, that person that relies on the little mom and pop shops that you want to keep alive on those main streets. The hardworking, you know, folks that are out there doing their thing, it's huge. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. I think this is a great conversation that we've had that has illustrated the importance of how so many different areas of expertise and from the city, from the banker, from, you know, the attorney, from the accountant, and from nonprofit organizations, and how they all function together to help businesses. And there's a lot of resources out there that I'm afraid that a lot of businesses just don't know they're out there, and they're willing to help, and it can be affordable if they just ask and make the effort to reach out. So thank you again, everyone. We really appreciate it. Our next session will be on September 17th, I think it is. And I believe, Shannon, correct me, this is an international business. Is that what the next session is?
Yes, it is. It will be covering international trade finance and areas to consider when possibly going into import-export type transactions and or tips and tricks if you're already doing that type of activities.
Okay, great. Well, till then, thank you again, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of the week.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you.
everyone.